The amount of time that passes in between these videos that I post to the channel these days is so big now that I always forget how to do little intros right before the video, so I don't even know really where to begin. I think the last time I made a video, I mentioned that I was going to an MIT conference, which I did. That's been like a month now. Maybe 2 months, actually. It's been all of June. Maybe... Oh, shoot, it's been like 2 months. I think it's been 2 months since I went to that conference because it was at the end of April. But the MIT conference was fun. It was only a weekend. We were only there for 2 days. I got to meet a lot of familiar faces. Well, not meet, but you know what I mean. I had to get to become reacquainted with some people that have been to previous conferences that I've known. And then I met some new people. And these guys, these conferences, you get to meet people from all over the globe. There were people there from, I want to say, I think one guy was from Chile. There was a lot of Russians there. I think there was one guy from Germany, a couple people from Greece. So it was pretty interesting to get to meet all these people and speak with them. It's kind of a, in academia, that's probably quite usual, but for someone of my background, it's you don't get to meet people from all corners of the globe on a regular basis. But it was fun. We sat and there were 2 main lecturers, and then I got to present my poster during the poster session. My current research, unfortunately, the poster that I made for that, I did not get to present. So what I ended up doing was I took my previous poster, my old poster that I did research on. That paper, the research that was on that poster had been published in 2021, so it's already been out there and actually has 2 citations now, which is pretty good. I presented that. I kind of wanted to do the new stuff because it is the new stuff. It's the stuff I've been working on, and I really wanted to do it, but it didn't work out, it's okay. But I had a lot of fun. I got to hang out with my friends that I travel with in my usual grad student crew. They're always fun to work with and travel with. I think some of these guys, one of the guys I travel with now, he is now living in Paris, France. There's a research institute in France that one of the guys in the department has a connection to. So he was able to get the opportunity to go to Paris and live there for a month, maybe month and a half to do research. I wish I knew the names of these places, but maybe I should check with him first before saying all this stuff. But he's over there now. He'll be over there for the summer and do research. Maybe I should do a follow-up with him and post it on the channel if he's okay. I know he'll be okay with it, so I think that'd be kind of a cool video to do because I would like to know what it's like. I've been to Paris once during the Spanish conference. We had a layover in Paris, which I guess you can't really count. But I'd like to know what his experience is like. And then another one of my grad student gang members, if you want to call it that, she is going to be leaving us soon, which is kind of upsetting because I know when she leaves, she'll go back to her home country and probably won't get to see her again. Other than the MIT conference, the next big thing I did was I went to a concert. I've never been to a concert before, and I went, and it's not really my scene. I'm not really interested in concerts. But my all-time favorite musical group is AC/DC. Their music is ubiquitous. You hear that in like sports stadiums, at sporting events. You hear them in movies and TV shows and commercials all the time. They've been around for 50 years, and I don't know how much longer they have in terms of being able to tour. So when I found out that they were going to be coming to the biggest city near me, I was like, okay, I should probably go. And I went, and they played for about 2.5 hours, and they didn't mess around at all. They pretty much, there was no breaks. They were like, let's just do one song right after the other. And they had a pretty big set list of like 20 songs. I think it was more than 20 actually. And they were able to get through it in 2.5 hours. And it was a really fun experience. I'm glad I really got to see them because they are my favorite group. I learned to play guitar by listening to their music. I have all their albums. So I know this isn't really a mathematics update. I talked about MIT. I can talk about AC/DC for a second. But other than that, I've been doing the thing I should be doing, is writing that paper. So when I spoke with my PhD advisor and we were trying to plan out like what the future, well, I was trying to plan out what the future looked like. Basically, this is the deal. I have 1 year's worth of funding left. And my goal is to try and publish 2 papers, 2 good papers, because my advisor, I noticed that a lot of advisors kind of like, they have their own arbitrary chosen goals that they want you to accomplish. 3 papers seems to be like the popular one. They want you, a lot of advisors like, I want you to write 3 papers. 3 average, maybe good. It depends on what their preferences are. My guy, instead of like 3 average papers, he wants like 2 really good papers. And sitting right now, I think we have 1 really good paper. And my goal is by the end of this summer, it will be done. I did not work on it at all. I'm going to be honest. I did not work on it at all in June. And it's July 1st now. But it's not too bad because I did work on it a lot in May, and I wrote about 5, 6, or 7 pages. I can't really remember. It may be more than that. Maybe 8 at the most. No more than 8. And that may not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about mathematics and the type of research I'm doing, math is an incredibly, when it's written down on paper and you're proving stuff, it's incredibly dense. Like 1 line alone is going to have so much information in it. So to write like 5 pages to publish is kind of, there's a lot going on, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't really want to show what I've been working on because it is still under wraps, and this type of stuff should be kind of kept private. Maybe as it progresses and gets farther along, I'll start to unveil more of what was done. But that paper, I believe... Okay, so let me tell you like why I stopped working on it in June. I worked on it a lot, and I got a lot done by the end of May. And then I ran into a hiccup. So I was making a lot of progress. I kind of knew everything that needed to happen. It really was just a matter of organizing things and making it look pretty, excuse me. But, and I know that when this paper's done, I'm going to give it to someone to read, and they're going to like, oh, no. This needs to go up here. This needs to move down here. Get rid of this part. Add this part and put it in its place. That's kind of like the game. And then as soon as like the advisor does all that, then it goes to like reviewers that want to publish it. And then they got to add in their 2 cents. They're like, no. You and your advisor are not right at all. You need to move this over here. It's just... And then pretty soon it looks like some bastard creation. You're like, this isn't the paper that I wrote at all at the end. But that, I'm not complaining. That's just the name of the game. But basically, the result that we're trying to do needs to be done in n-dimensional Euclidean space. And I was writing it in n-dimensional Euclidean space, and everything was perfect. And then I realized when it came to the big lemma, which is probably the best thing I've done in my 4 years in the PhD program, this lemma that I can't take full credit for, but I do take some credit for because there was a lot of people looking at this, not just me. I went to a postdoc and talked to him a lot. I went to my advisor, talked to him. I went to another instructor, talked to him. And then combining our 4 brains, we came up with the big lemma. But the big lemma was done primarily in 2 dimensions because, doing stuff in n dimensions may be difficult, but you can do it in 2 dimensions first and then try and abstract it to higher dimensions after that. So that is the thing that I am currently working on, is how do I do this big lemma in n-dimensional space? So what I think I'm going to do, just so that something is written, I'm going to write the paper in 2 dimensions, just so that something is completed and done. Because it's better to have something than to have nothing, right? I'm going to rewrite the paper. So I got 5 pages in n-dimensional space. I'm going to start over and do everything from the ground up in 2 dimensions. And I think that will be really good to show my advisor, just to show that, I have something. And then for n-dimensional space, I don't really see it being like an absolute monster to try and get over. I think I'm just not saying something. The hardest part really is over. It's just putting the thing down on paper and making it make sense. And then, doing it in higher dimensional space. But what we're doing is really not that different from what had been done before. It's hard to explain without actually writing it down and showing it, but that's sort of what I want to do. And by the end of the summer, I believe this paper can be fully done. By the end of July, the 2-dimensional case. By the end of August, can I do n dimensions? Probably, I would say. Maybe throw in September just for good measure. But then comes the matter of writing the second paper. So I have this idea for a second paper. It is kind of my own creation, so I don't trust it. Whenever I try and do something myself and do something original, I don't trust myself anymore. My teachers, well, I don't want to say as my teachers did this, but when I first entered, let me put it this way. When I first entered the program, I was very proactive, trying to do everything to make my professors happy, ask good questions, try and think abstractly, try and listen to what they were saying and say, maybe I can try and impress them by coming up with a very super smart question that can stump them. And usually, like 9 times out of 10, my super smart question was actually quite stupid. And that is kind of like the lesson I learned the first year is don't pretend to be smart. Just be honest. If you have a legitimate question, chances are it will be good by itself if it's a good question. But you have to let it sit, percolate a little bit, think about it yourself first, and if it's not immediate to yourself, then maybe ask a professor. And that's kind of what I'm sitting with now, 4 years in. So I'll explain a little bit about where this idea came from. It actually kind of came from a conference I went to back in December 2024. I went to a conference at Brown, which I recorded and posted to the channel. I watched this one lecture, and I thought the lecture was really interesting because what they were talking about was closely related to what I was doing. And okay, so it was kind of born there, and it evolved when I was working on my current paper. So let me explain a little bit about the current paper. The current paper follows closely a paper that my advisor wrote before. It's kind of like it runs in tandem to a paper that he already wrote. So we're kind of like following the breadcrumbs that was laid out in the first paper, and we expect 2 results to show up. Or, well, we didn't really, I don't want to say we expected it, but it was like, I wonder if those 2 results that showed up over here in the previous paper will show up here in this paper. And it is my belief that, from my own research, that one of the results is true, like it matches the previous paper, but the other result does not match the previous paper, which was like the first, so this is actually different. This isn't actually copy-paste of the previous paper. We're getting 2 different. We get one thing that was kind of the same in the previous paper, and the other thing is different. I know this is very non-technical and very... I'm not saying anything here because to explain what's going on in these papers would take a video in and of itself. So, but anyway, so I was thinking about the thing that failed, and I thought back to the Brown lecture that I saw, and I'm thinking, how can I get this result that showed up here to show up here? And I thought back to that lecture from Brown, and I'm like, I wonder if I can take this idea, modify the original problem here, so that both of these results show up so that it looks just like what it is up there. And I thought about it, and I mentioned it to my advisor, but he didn't it was a fledgling idea at the time, so I would like to. So he didn't think much about it because it was just like a, hey, what do you think of this? And then he goes, I don't know, think about the first paper first, and then we'll talk about it later. That was kind of his response. But when this paper is, when at least the two-dimensional case is taken care of, and I write that paper up, I will take my idea, try and reformulate it, see if something is there. Something, it may not be, this may be garbage, but I do know that this idea can be applied here. And I'm curious if it will get me an interesting result. Although it does feel a little bit artificial what I'm doing. It feels like I'm reverse engineering a problem so that the result I get is the result that I wanted. But I don't know. I'm still figuring out this research thing. It would be very interesting to see if this, my original idea, merits an entire paper, if it's worth investigating and publishing, because that would feel really great. Because that just, when you're a graduate student, you're kind of like baby bird, everyone feeds you. And then 4 years in, you're actually coming up with research projects yourself and getting it published. So it feels good. It feels like you're growing and making progress. Anyway, what is this thing? It's 16 minutes in. This is my notes for the measure theory lectures and videos that I made. You can see here with chapter 1, I start with set theory. I try to include as many pictures as I can, but sometimes it's not, sometimes it's hard to do. It's hard to draw some of this stuff. But I started with set theory. I did not want to, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I didn't really want to do any proofs or anything like that in the first chapter because this is really just a review of set theory. And most of these notes that were taken from the Kolmogorov textbook because that book was very well written. But, I skipped a page. But my goal was to go through 10 chapters of measure theory where I start with set theory, just a review of it. And then chapter 2, where's chapter 2? Chapter 2 is about metric spaces. Still, the notes are taken from the Kolmogorov book. And one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to write it and present it in a way that made it very accessible to first-time students, or first-time measure theorists, we'll put it that way, people learning measure theory for the first time. Like someone that takes calculus and maybe has like a little bit of proofs under their belt can really approach this. Because my big gripe with graduate student textbooks is the authors are really smart people that are very capable of doing their own research and writing great papers, coming up with great results. But they don't really seem to be able to communicate it well with, for lack of a better term, dum-dums like myself. I would try and read these measure theory books for the first time. I'm like, I don't understand what the material is so inaccessible to me. And I think it's because they kind of just word dump on the page. It's just like big blocky paragraphs and minimal pictures. So I wanted to try and fix that, which I don't know if I really succeeded. I tried really hard to write as few words as possible, use negative space effectively, because here, like just for this example, or this page, I got 4 examples, and they all got, adequate white space to separate them, and I've written very little. I mean, I didn't really explain like why these are metric spaces, but for the sake of examples, and if you've seen this before, it's not too bad. But my goal in those videos, which I've yet to publish to the channel, I would elaborate on them word for word. So yeah, a lot of what's in this book is review, but there are proofs in here. But some of this stuff that's not exclusively measure theory, I kind of go through quickly. And if the result just seems obvious, then I didn't really include it. See, now we're getting into topology a little bit. Properties of closure, like if you have a set A that's a subset of B, then the closure of A is contained in the closure of B. That seems pretty clear. I didn't really want to prove that. The closure of a set is equal to the closure of the set. Closure of the empty set is the empty set. Stuff like that. And you see I still tried to include some pretty pictures. Let's zoom ahead. That's topological spaces. That's boring. Where's measure theory? Where is measure theory? That's compactness. This is still top topology. Yeah, some of these I was not as successful at spacing out as much as I wanted to. So here's here's some pictures actually. Anyway, so measure theory starts here. I just go through with the Lebesgue measure, and then eventually the next chapter I talk about measurable functions, and then the chapter after that I talk about the Lebesgue integral, finish up with Fubini's theorem. This stuff though I think I did pretty well with. Chapter, what is it? 4 is measure, Lebesgue measure. My goal is to, but unfortunately this this big notebook filled with proofs, like once measure theory starts, you know, the proofs are included. But my big failure, I think, with this big notebook of notes is that it only has 9 chapters in it. It finishes with, I think, integration theory, and then I wanted to transition into a construction of measure. Basically, here's how you construct the outer measure. Here's the generic definition of outer measure, and I used the Zygmunt Whedon book to present that information. But I ran out of room, unfortunately, and I was going to put it in another notebook, but I really didn't want to separate chapter 10 from the other 9 chapters, so I just finished with 9, which kind of bums me out. Continuity of measure. I believe in writing as few words as possible. Draw as many pictures as you can. Just get the big idea, because this is how you're going to prepare for those qualifier exams, which was another thing I wanted to do, was help the new guys that are preparing for qualifiers. This is not perfect, though, this great big collection of notes. I did miss some things, which is what happens when you take notes from a textbook that leave exercises in the problem section, like prove the Lebesgue measure is translation invariant. I'm like, well, I forgot to put that in my notes because it was an exercise in the back. But overall, I think I'm still pretty happy with what I've written here. Now we're on to chapter 5, I think. Lebesgue measurable functions. Almost everywhere. Anyway, this is too long of a video. Maybe one day the boy will finish his projects, but that is to be seen. I will try and be more responsible in uploading videos, but in the meantime, I think I covered a lot. We went to MIT, we went to ACDC, we're grading this summer, we're doing research, we're writing stuff, we have personal projects to waste our time, and we're making videos for the channel, so life is good.